Every love story has a hidden truth, and every heart hides a lie. Sometimes the things we leave unsaid are the ones that haunt us the most. Diary of love and lies. Stories that feel real because they are.
The scent of expensive pine and wood smoke hit me the second the elevator door slid open into the penthouse, but it was the underlying note of jasmine and vanilla, a perfume I never wore, that stopped my heart. I stood in the foyer of the most expensive real estate in Manhattan, clutching a designer suitcase that felt like a lead weight, realizing that the man I had loved for 15 years had turned our sanctuary into a crime scene. To understand the weight of this moment, you have to understand Oak Haven, Ohio. It was a town where the factory closed in '98, and the only thing that grew was the bitterness of the people left behind. My father was a mechanic with grease permanently etched into the lines of his palms. Julian's father owned the factory. I remember the night we fell in love. We were 17, hiding from a winter formal we both hated. We sat under the rusted bleachers of the high school football field, the metal biting into our legs through our thin clothes. "Elena," Julian had said, his voice a rough whisper. He had taken off his tuxedo jacket and wrapped it around my shoulders. It smelled of expensive laundry detergent, and something uniquely him, cedar and ambition. My father thinks he can buy my future. He thinks he can pick my wife like he picks a board member, but he doesn't know me. He doesn't know that I'd trade every cent of that inheritance for one more hour sitting here with you. I believed him. I was 17 and hungry for a magic that didn't exist in my trailer park. We made a pact that night, a blood moon promise. We pricked our fingers with a safety pin and pressed them together. No matter what they do to us, we find our way back. 2 weeks later, Arthur Thorne found out. He didn't just send Julian away, he humiliated my family. He called my father into his office and told him that if I didn't stop distracting his son, the Thorne estate would pull the lease on my father's garage. My father came home that night looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "You have to let him go, El," he whispered, staring at his boots. "Some people are born with wings, and some of us are just the ground they jump off of." Julian was shipped to a boarding school in La Rose, Switzerland, within 48 hours. No goodbye, no letter. Just a void where my heart used to be. I didn't let the void consume me. I used it as fuel. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through art school in London, far away from the stifling air of Ohio. I became Elena Vance, the woman who didn't need a billionaire to buy her life. I built the Mirrored Room, a gallery in Mayfair that became the it spot for European elite. I dated, of course. There was Marcus, a charming architect, and Liam, a sweet poet. But every time a man leaned in to kiss me, I tasted the cedar and ambition of a ghost. I was haunted by a 17-year-old boy who had promised me the world. Then, 3 years ago at my biggest opening to date, the ghost walked through the front door. He looked like a god. His jawline was sharper, his eyes more guarded, but when he saw me, the ice melted. He didn't say hello or how are you. He walked straight up to me, ignored the crowd, and whispered, "I kept the promise, Elena. I built the world. Now, I need the queen." He had spent a decade fighting his father for control of Thorne International. He had won. Arthur was sidelined, and Julian was the king. We spent the next 3 years in a whirlwind of private jets and 5-star hotels, but there was always a shadow. He was on call constantly. He had business retreats in Vermont that I wasn't invited to. "It's for us, Elena," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Once the Thorne Logistics merger is done, I'm retiring. We'll disappear, just you and me." I wanted to believe it so badly that I ignored the red flags. I ignored the way he flinched when I touched his phone. I ignored the way he never took me to his private residence in New York, insisting we stay in hotels until the penthouse was ready. Coming home to New York this December was supposed to be the end of the secrets. We were moving into the penthouse. The merger was weeks away. The first crack appeared at the St. Regis Winter Gala. Julian was at the bar, and I was making my way back from the powder room when I saw him talking to a woman. She was beautiful in a way that felt grounded. Blonde hair pulled back in a simple knot, wearing a dress that was elegant but clearly not couture. Beside her was a little boy, maybe 2 years old, with dark, wavy hair and startlingly blue eyes. I watched as Julian reached out and adjusted the boy's tie. His face... I had never seen that expression on him. It wasn't the look of a CEO. It was the look of a man who was looking at his entire heart. When I approached, Julian jumped as if I'd fired a gun. Elena, you're back, he said, his voice tight. This is Claire. She's the widow of a former associate. I'm helping her with some legal matters regarding her husband's estate. Claire looked at me, and for a second, I saw a flash of pity in her eyes. It's nice to meet you, Elena, she said softly. Her voice was kind. I hated that I liked her voice. Come on, JJ, she said to the boy. Let's get you home. It's past your bedtime. Julian watched them walk away with a longing so profound it made my blood run cold. You're very generous, Julian, I said, testing the waters. I try to be, he replied, but he didn't look at me for the rest of the night. Fast forward to the night I arrived early from London. I found the perfume in the air. I found the silk scarf. I waited until Julian fell into a deep, alcohol-induced sleep, and I went to his study. I opened his laptop. My fingers were ice. I didn't have to look hard. He had a folder hidden inside a system drive labeled Home. Inside were thousands of photos. There was Claire, pregnant, sitting in a rocking chair in a cozy-looking house I didn't recognize. There was Julian, holding a newborn in a hospital room. The date on the photo was the same day he told me he was in Tokyo for a crisis meeting. There were videos of JJ's first steps, but the one that broke me was a video from last Christmas. Julian was sitting on a rug, wearing a ridiculous reindeer sweater, opening gifts with Claire and the boy. I wish we didn't have to hide, Jules, Claire said in the video, leaning her head on his shoulder. Soon, Claire, Julian replied. The lady from London is just a business arrangement. My father needs the merger to look traditional. Once it's signed, she's gone, and we can be a real family, I promise. I'm doing this for us. The lady from London. I felt a physical sensation of my soul being ripped out through my throat. I wasn't his first love. I wasn't the queen he had waited for. I was a business arrangement. I was the respectable, high society face he needed to satisfy his father's old-fashioned board of directors while he lived his real life with a woman he actually loved. I had been his shield. I had been the distraction. I didn't sleep. At 6 a.m., I found an address in his GPS history, a brownstone on the Upper West Side. I didn't call a lawyer. I called a car. I stood on the sidewalk for an hour, watching the house. At 8:30 a.m., Claire came out to get the mail. She was wearing a bathrobe and holding a steaming mug. She looked happy. She looked safe. I crossed the street. Claire? She looked up, squinting against the morning sun. Recognition dawned on her, and her face went pale. Elena, what are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, and I think you know why. She didn't scream. She didn't get angry. She invited me in. The house was beautiful, not cold and marble like the penthouse, but warm. There were toys on the floor and the smell of cinnamon. It was a home. He told me you were his business partner's daughter, Claire said, her voice trembling as we sat at her kitchen table. He said you were helping him navigate the European markets and that he had to pretend to be with you to keep the Thorne family image intact for the merger. He told me you were a widow he was helping out of charity, I replied. We sat in silence for a long time. Two women, both loved by the same man, both lied to in the most fundamental way. He's never going to leave you, is he? Claire asked, a tear finally escaping. He needs your status. He needs the Thorne name to stay clean for the billions. No, I said, reaching across the table and taking her hand. He's not going to leave me, because I'm leaving him, and if you're smart, you'll come with me. I returned to the penthouse at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Julian was there, pouring 2 glasses of champagne. He looked triumphant. The merger papers are being delivered tonight, Elena. We did it. We're the most powerful couple in New York. Are we, Julian? I asked, walking toward the center of the room. I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of photos, not the ones of us, but the ones I'd taken that morning. Photos of me and Claire sitting in her kitchen. Photos of me holding JJ. Julian's face went from tan to gray in 3 seconds. He looked like a man watching his own execution. Elena, I can explain. It's complicated. I was going to set her up comfortably. You were going to keep us both in cages, I interrupted. 1 cage made of marble and 1 cage made of brownstone. You wanted to be the king of 2 worlds, Julian. but you forgot that a king is nothing without his subjects. You can't leave, he snarled, the billionaire's arrogance returning. If you walk out now, the board will pull the merger. My father will disinherit me. You'll destroy everything I've worked for. I didn't destroy it, I said, picking up my suitcase. You did the day you decided that the lady from London wasn't a person, but a transaction. I walked to the door, but paused. Oh, and Julian? Claire isn't at the brownstone. She's at a hotel with JJ. She's already called a lawyer. Turns out, New York courts are very interested in undisclosed assets and secret families when it comes to child support for billionaires. I stepped into the elevator. Julian was shouting my name, but the doors slid shut with a smooth, expensive click, cutting him off. As I walked out into the Manhattan snow, I felt the cold air hit my lungs, and for the first time in 15 years, I wasn't breathing for someone else. I walked past the giant Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, the lights blurring into a kaleidoscope of colors. I had come home for Christmas to find a billionaire, but I left with something Julian Thorne would never have, a clean conscience. The news didn't just break, it detonated. By 9 a.m. on Christmas morning, while the rest of New York was unwrapping presents, the Wall Street Journal and Page Six were running synchronized headlines. The billionaire's double life. Thorne Logistics merger collapses amid secret family scandal. I watched the ticker tape from a quiet boutique hotel in Brooklyn, a place Julian would never think to look because the thread count wasn't high enough. I sat with a cup of black coffee, watching the digital ghost of my past go up in flames. The photos I'd sent to the board weren't just scandalous, they were evidence of undisclosed financial liabilities. In the world of high finance, a mistress is a cliche, but a secret heir and a 3-year trail of diverted corporate funds to maintain a hidden household is a breach of fiduciary duty. By noon, the Thorne International stock had plummeted 22%. By 2 p.m., the board of directors issued a formal statement. Julian Thorne had been relieved of his duties effective immediately. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. We're safe. JJ is watching cartoons. He keeps asking for Daddy, but I told him Daddy is away on a very long business trip. Thank you, Elena, for the truth. I didn't reply immediately. I couldn't. The victory felt like ashes in my mouth. I had spent 15 years loving a man who was essentially a high-end mirage. 3 days later, I went back to the penthouse. Not to stay, but to collect the last of the things that actually belonged to me. My sketches, my mother's locket, and my pride. The elevator opened to a different world. The pine scent was gone, replaced by the stale smell of scotch and cigarettes. The 12-foot tree was still there, but half the lights had burnt out, casting long, jagged shadows across the marble. Julian was sitting on the floor in the middle of the living room. His $5,000 suit was wrinkled, and he hadn't shaved. He looked like the boy from the bleachers again, but without the hope. You really did it, he said, his voice a dry rasp. He didn't even look up. My father won't even take my calls. The lawyers say Claire is going for the throat. I'm going to lose the house, Elena. I'm going to lose everything. You didn't lose it, Julian, I said, packing my locket into a small velvet bag. You traded it. You traded a life of integrity for a life of options. You thought you were so much smarter than the rest of us. I loved you both, he suddenly shouted, standing up and stumbling toward me. Why is that so hard to understand? I wanted the brilliance of you and the peace of her. I wanted to be the man who had it all. You can't have it all when it all involves lying to the people who trust you, I said, moving toward the door. You didn't love us, Julian. You loved the way we made you feel. You loved the power of maintaining 2 different versions of yourself, but eventually the masks get too heavy to wear. He reached out to grab my arm, but I stepped back. The diamond ring I'd dropped in his glass was sitting on the coffee table, dried and dull. What are you going to do now? He asked, his voice cracking. You're back to your little gallery? You're back to being nobody. I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that the wings his father talked about were just a pair of golden handcuffs. I was never a nobody, Julian, I said softly. I was just the only person in this room who didn't need $1 billion to feel like a somebody. 1 year later, I was back in London. The gallery was thriving, but more importantly, I was sleeping through the night. I no longer woke up wondering where Julian was or why his phone was turned over on the nightstand. I received a postcard in the mail that December. It was a picture of a snowy park in Vermont. On the back, In neat, steady handwriting were just a few words. JJ started preschool. He has your eyes, he says. I told him they were the eyes of a friend. We're doing okay. Hope you're breathing easy. C. I smiled and pinned the card to my mirror. I had come home for Christmas to find a billionaire, but I found something much more permanent. I found the realization that first loves are often meant to be our first lessons. Painful, beautiful, and necessary to burn away the person we thought we had to be. As the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve, I raised a glass of cheap, honest champagne to the London fog. I wasn't waiting for a prince, and I wasn't hiding from a ghost. I was just Elena. And for the first time in my life, that was more than enough. Love isn't a merger, and loyalty isn't a contract. If you build your life on a lie, don't be surprised when the truth sets your kingdom on fire. Sometimes, the most romantic thing a first love can do for you is show you exactly who you don't want to be.